Are we on the brink of World War III? What are the world's most serious conflicts? And what happens next? With rising tensions between global superpowers, military buildups and new alliances forming, many experts warn that the world may be closer to war than at any time since World War II. But is this really the case? And if so, what would a new world war look like? The geopolitical landscape today is more complex than at any time in recent history. Multiple regions are on the verge of full-scale conflict. Nations are increasing military spending, alliances are shifting, and diplomatic relations are strained across the globe. From the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and China, to the war in Ukraine, and the volatile Middle East, the world seems to be in a state of constant crisis. What's alarming is that unlike past conflicts, modern warfare includes cyber attacks, nuclear threats, and even space-based military strategies. If an all-out war were to erupt, it wouldn't look like anything we've seen before. Despite diplomatic efforts to ease tensions, countries continue to stockpile advanced weaponry, forming new military pacts and strengthening old ones. The re-emergence of ideological battles between democracy and authoritarianism further complicates international relations, making compromise harder than ever. So how close are we really? We'll analyze the world's most dangerous conflicts, the key players, and what experts say about the possibility of a third world war. Stick around until the end, because one shocking detail about modern warfare may change how you view global security forever. Could the rivalry between the U.S. and China spark the next world war? These two superpowers are engaged in a high-stakes battle for global influence, with tensions rising over Taiwan, the South China Sea, and economic competition. China's military has expanded rapidly, with advanced naval and missile capabilities, posing a direct challenge to U.S. dominance in the Pacific. The U.S., in response, has strengthened military alliances with Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. The situation is further complicated by Taiwan, a self-governing island that China considers part of its territory. Any military move against Taiwan could draw in the U.S., setting the stage for a catastrophic conflict. Economic warfare is another front. The U.S. and China have imposed tariffs, restricted technology exports, and engaged in a battle over semiconductor production. This production is critical to modern defense systems. If economic tensions escalate further, they could lay the foundation for a military confrontation. With China expanding its influence through projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, and the U.S. responding with their own Indo-Pacific military strategies, the world is definitely watching. Could this power struggle turn into the first great war of the 21st century? Is Ukraine the flashpoint for a larger war? Since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the conflict has drawn in Western nations, supplying weapons, funding, and intelligence to Kyiv. Could NATO's involvement escalate the war beyond Ukraine's borders? Russia has made repeated nuclear threats, warning the West not to interfere. Meanwhile, NATO has expanded, with Finland and Sweden joining, further straining relations with Moscow. As Ukraine continues its counteroffensives, the risk of a direct NATO-Russia confrontation grows. If Russia were to target NATO supply lines, or escalate the war to Poland or the Baltics, it could trigger Article 5, NATO's collective defense clause, potentially leading to direct military engagement between nuclear-armed superpowers. With Putin's future uncertain, and Russia growing closer to China and Iran, the long-term implications of this war could be far greater than many expect. Could this be the war that pulls the world into a larger conflict? Could the Middle East be the catalyst for World War III? The region has long been a hotspot of conflict, and rising tensions between Israel, Iran, and other powers have only made things worse. Iran's nuclear program has drawn threats from Israel and the U.S., with some experts fearing that a preemptive strike could trigger a wider war. Meanwhile, proxy conflicts involving Iran-backed groups in Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen continue to destabilize the region. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains unresolved, with occasional flare-ups leading to massive escalations. If a regional war breaks out, global superpowers could be drawn in, as oil supply disruptions and regional instability affect economies worldwide. With alliances shifting, Saudi Arabia and Iran attempting diplomacy, all while the U.S. strengthens ties with Israel, the situation remains volatile. Is the Middle East one attack away from triggering a chain reaction of conflicts? Could cyber warfare and artificial intelligence make traditional wars obsolete? While many think of war in terms of tanks and missiles, modern conflicts are increasingly fought online. Cyber attacks on infrastructure, power grids, and financial systems can cripple nations without a single shot being fired. Countries like Russia, China, and North Korea have been accused of launching cyber attacks on Western targets. Artificial intelligence is also changing warfare. AI-powered drones and autonomous weapons could allow nations to fight wars with minimal human casualties, at least on their side. The U.S. and China are locked in a race to dominate AI-driven military technology. If cyber and AI warfare escalate, the next world war might not begin with an invasion. It could begin with a massive power outage, or a financial system collapse. Are we already in the early stages of World War III, without even realizing it? Are smaller regional conflicts in the Indo-Pacific the real trigger for a larger war? While much attention is focused on the great powers, smaller nations in the region are engaged in escalating disputes that could pull in global superpowers. The South China Sea is one of the most heavily contested areas in the world, with China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Taiwan all laying claims to parts of the sea. China's aggressive military buildup in the area, including the construction of artificial islands and naval patrols, has led to repeated confrontations with U.S. allies. If one of these conflicts turns violent, the U.S. could be drawn into defending its allies. India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed nations, have a long history of conflicts over Kashmir. While current tensions are somewhat controlled, any sudden escalation could have devastating consequences. With India deepening its ties with the U.S., and Pakistan maintaining close relations with China, any outbreak of war between them could quickly expand into a global conflict. Meanwhile, North Korea's frequent missile tests and nuclear threats continue to raise alarm. While the world has largely dismissed North Korea's provocations in the past, a direct attack on South Korea or Japan could force U.S. intervention and drag China into the confrontation. Are these smaller regional disputes the real trigger for the next world war? Could economic warfare be the true catalyst for World War III? While many conflicts begin with military confrontations, history shows that economic crises and trade wars have also played a key role in triggering large-scale wars. The U.S., China, and Europe are all engaged in intense trade disputes. From tariffs and sanctions to technological restrictions, these economic battles are increasing tensions between global superpowers. If one major economic power collapses, the ripple effects could destabilize the entire world, creating the conditions for conflict. The global energy crisis is another flashpoint. Countries dependent on Russian oil and gas have struggled with rising prices and shortages since the war in Ukraine began. Meanwhile, China is aggressively securing resources in Africa and South America, leading to tensions with Western nations. Competition for resources has historically led to war. Could it happen again? History has shown that economic distress often precedes global conflict. The Great Depression helped create the conditions for World War II, as struggling nations turned to military expansion to regain power. Could a financial collapse, a resource war, or a trade dispute be the final spark that ignites the next world war? With rising tensions across multiple regions, the question remains, are we heading toward global war, or can diplomacy prevent it? While history shows that major conflicts can escalate quickly, nations still have the power to de-escalate through dialogue, economic agreements, and strategic compromises. The world is more interconnected than ever before, making war an incredibly costly endeavor. Global leaders face a crucial choice: continue escalating tensions or find new ways to cooperate. While war is always a possibility, so is peace, and history is filled with moments when diplomacy triumphed against all odds. The global economy, cyber warfare, military buildups, and regional tensions all make the world a volatile place, but they also present opportunities for cooperation. Preventing World War III will require world leaders to recognize that modern conflict has no real victors, only destruction. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the decisions made in the coming years will determine whether the world moves toward destruction or stability. Is humanity capable of avoiding a third world war, or is history doomed to repeat itself? Do you think World War III is inevitable? Or can we still prevent it? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you found this in-depth global discussion eye-opening. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.